Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you finally got that video up. All I'll say to all you young men out there with a full head of hair, enjoy it while you can. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you all. I appreciate you inviting me here today. I've seen your agenda and the number of politicians that you're going to be listening to, and I don't know whether to admire you for your stamina or compliment you on your being such a glutton for punishment, but I'm glad you included me in the mix. My relationship with you folks can be summed up very shortly. Check the record. That's about all I probably need to say. But having rejoined the ranks of the politicians again, obviously that's not all I'm going to say. But I do remember our relationship from way back, from the time that Charlton Heston came to Tennessee in 1994, and I formed a friendship with that great American and watched him hobble across the state with me on a bad hip and go through pain to help me win my first election in the United States Senate. I think back to the time that I had for a while I had a skeet shoot there in Nashville. Many of you know of. I met some of you there for the first time. We raised a little money for juvenile diabetes. And then, of course, your support for me for the United States Senate and my support for the Second Amendment, as I said I would do when I went to the United States Senate. I never subscribed to the notion that it made our country safer by infringing on the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. I think back to the A rating I got from this organization and the endorsements that I was proud to receive. So it's not just a matter of promises made as far as I'm concerned. It's a matter of commitments that have been kept. But you know, sometimes when the stage gets a little larger, the voices get a little weaker. My first trip to New Hampshire after I announced my candidacy, I went to a gun store. When I was in Florida just last week, I went to a gun show right before the UT Florida football game. I should have stayed at the gun show. But it's not because I hang out there every day. It's because I wanted to demonstrate something that I think is important. That I will say the same things that I've been saying since 1994, and that what I say in New Hampshire, I will say in Florida, and all parts in between. My philosophy does not depend on my geography, and I thought it was time I laid down that marker early on. But we're here today not just because of our support of the Second Amendment. We're here today for our support for the rest of the Constitution and what I call the first principles that this country was founded upon. These first principles have to do with human nature, they have to do with the wisdom of the ages, and they have to do with the notion that there's some things that don't change in this changing world that we live in. It's given us the Declaration of Independence, which reminds us, if we need reminding, that our basic rights come from God and not from government. It's given us the Constitution of the United States. Thank you. Thank you. It's given us the Constitution of the United States, which divides power based on the notion that it's not good to put too much power in too few hands. And it divides it not only at the federal level, but between the federal and the state level based on the notion that all solutions to all problems are not found in Washington, D.C. That, in turn, is based upon the idea of the eternal truth that this country was founded upon. That's the idea of freedom, individual freedom, political freedom, economic freedom, and the fact that all those things are tied together. And it's also based upon the knowledge that we have that a government's big and powerful enough to give you anything is big and powerful enough to take anything away from you, and we reject that kind of government in this country. And with those first principles, it allowed a fellow like me to get in his truck and go from one end of the state to the other. Started 20 points down, wound up 20 points ahead on election night. Won a state by 20 points, 2 different elections, 20 points each, in a state that Bill Clinton carried twice. Talking about lower taxes, talking about less regulation, talking about the importance of the sanctity of life, talking about competition among free people in that free marketplace, talking about the importance of trade, and how if we adhered to those principles, we'd remain the most prosperous country in the history of the world. And not only for us, but it set an example for everybody else in the world, any other country that applied those principles and a little dose of rule of law, and it's almost guaranteed economic success for any nation that's ever tried it, anywhere in the world. And obviously, a part of that and strong defense and appreciation consistently for the Second Amendment. It was not because back in those days I was thinking about running for president. I think my history shows that I'm not standing here before you as somebody who's craved that office ever since I was a junior in high school. That's not been the case.